Dr. Sesanti, a very good afternoon to you, and also for joining us. Before we get into much, who are we talking about here, essentially?
Good afternoon, and thank you very much for having me as well. Here today, we are referring and celebrating a son of the soil, African soil to be more particular, who has demonstrated his love to the continent by making the necessary contribution which entails sacrifice, towards the liberation of the occupied territory of Africa, but at the same time, not only identifying himself with colonized South Africa, but with the struggle of the entire continent and all the African people wherever they may be found. Therefore, that in sum is a summary of the definition of Pan Africanism, an ideology that is committed to liberating the African people wherever they may be found. And having said that, Dr. Pheko not only then joined a liberation movement, but he put forward ideas and theories that were to enable the revolutionary struggle to move forward. Because, ignored by many of us is the importance of all times of theory in the liberation struggle. Because as Kwame Nkrumah once told us, that, action without theory is blind, in as much as theory without action is empty. And so, therefore, in that sense, Dr. Pheko understood the important link between the two, and hence, he has made available to us thoughts through his pen. He's a prolific writer, therefore, in that sense, having given us a number of books, amongst them Apartheid, the story of a dispossessed people, South Africa, a betrayal of a colonized people. Who are the Africans? I could go on and on and on, but basically, in sum, that then is the man that we are celebrating today.
You speak of a Pan-Africanist and a great contributor to the liberation movement. Is it a fair assessment to say that he has not featured prominently on South Africa nor the continent, perhaps maybe not the rest of the continent, but South Africa's Hall of Fame in terms of history?
No, there's no doubt about that. And of course, that is not an accident of history. It has got to do with an ideological orientation. And we know that, those that have been largely in charge of the production of material in terms of the media and all that have been Eurocentric in their orientation. And therefore, having been Eurocentric in their orientation, they've always felt uncomfortable with any thought that advances a Pan-Africanist or Black consciousness thought. So therefore, that doesn't come, as an accident. But even then, in spite and despite of all that, Dr. Pheko has emerged and advanced what needed to be done. He wouldn't be the one who would complain about marginalization, and so neither would I complain about that, because we would not expect those that are opposed to Pan-Africanist thought to be the very ones who would then, seek to give space to that. So it comes with the territory, and it is what it is, but he continues to struggle on.
You speak of his literary works, including how the Freedom Charter betrayed the dispossessed. What would you say, perhaps just from engagements with him, his thought on current-day South Africa is?
Of course, his view is very clear, as has been realized even by those who do not necessarily belong to his liberation movement. In the words of Frantz Fanon in his book, The Wretched of the Earth, that the sacrifices that they've been made by the masses of the people, the pain that they've gone through cannot be measured in terms of what we have. And so, therefore, we are nowhere close to what the liberation struggle was for. And so those are his thoughts, and it is his thoughts that he continues to articulate, that, we are nowhere near to where we're supposed to be.
He was at some point the leader of the Pan Africanist Congress, the PAC. There were also very tough moments within the organization itself. When you look at what it is that leaders such as himself had sought out to do with the organization at the time and what the PAC is now, what would your assessment of it be?
Well, to begin with, the Pan Africanist Congress of Tanzania was established on the 6th of April, 1959. It was banned on the 8th of April, 1960. So it was only 1 year, 2 days. And so within that space of time, there are many who joined the Pan Africanist Congress of Tanzania without appreciating and understanding its political orientation, and many more joined later, the PAC not understanding it. Some, joining understandably so because they were angry with white people, the frustrations that they had, understandably so, and others, being resentful towards the ANC, and others for their own reasons. So what has happened then is that in the course of time, there's been very little appreciation and understanding of the Pan-Africanist thought that was supposed to guide the organization, and others who joined the PAC for their own selfish interests. And so in the midst of that, therefore, it was inevitable that the PAC would have the kinds of contradictions and tensions that it has had, that has resulted in many conflicts. And dare I say that, of course, just as much as other liberation movements were highly infiltrated, the PAC was no exception to that. It is and has always been a highly infiltrated organization. And therefore, that being the case, those that have always been committed to derailing and frustrating the direction of the Pan-Africanist Congress have done just that. And Dr. Pheko is one of those in the organization that have tried to steer and to keep on trying to bring the organization to a revolutionary path. And for that, he has had some successes, but at the same time, there have been many setbacks and many failures. So that is the context, I think, that one can, understand the PAC and the role that has been played by Dr. Pheko in particular.
Dr. Sesanti, in 20 seconds for us, on the 3rd of November, UNISA will be celebrating Dr. Pheko. Your message of celebration or appreciation to him while he can still smell the roses? There
is a song that is sung by the young people in this country. It says, "No masiafa, no masiafa, sicho city, aluku."
Aluku valo. Engozi, Dr. Sesanti. Have a blessed Sunday.